In 1908, a 14-year-old scullery maid in a Mayfair townhouse stirred a stockpot for 11 hours straight before her shift ended past midnight. Today, that same broth sells in Brooklyn cafes for $14 a cup as a wellness drink. Number 13 on this list was so good that upper-class guests started complaining their servants ate better than they did. Number 3 was prized so highly that head cooks were paid extra just to make it. These 20 below-stairs recipes fed the people who fed the great houses of England and America's Gilded Age mansions. They vanished when the houses closed. Hit that subscribe button. Let us count down the 20 lost servants' recipes nobody teaches anymore. Number 20. Bread and dripping. After the family's roast was carved upstairs, the pan came down to the kitchen with about a cup of beef fat congealing at the bottom. The cook would scrape that brown jellied dripping into a stone jar, season it with salt, and that became the servant's supper for the week. Thick slices of yesterday's bread, spread with cold beef dripping and a sprinkle of salt, was the scullery maid's evening meal at 9:30, after the family had gone to bed and the dishes were done. The amber-brown jelly underneath the white fat was the prized bit. It tasted like Sunday's roast, concentrated to a paste. A footman in 1895 could eat 3 slices and call it dinner. Nutritionists today would call it absurd, but that fat carried more vitamin A than half the supplements sold in any health store. Servants who ate it walked 14 miles a day inside the house and never gained an ounce. Number 19. Pot liquor soup. The water the vegetables were boiled in never went down the drain in a properly run house. The cook poured it into a stone crock and saved it. Cabbage water, carrot water, the dark green liquid left from greens, the milky water from boiled potatoes, all of it went into one accumulating broth that grew richer through the week. By Friday, that pot liquor had reduced to a deep, mineral-rich stock that the cook turned into a thick soup for the servants' hall with whatever scraps of meat were left from the family's table. It cost nothing. Not 1 penny. And modern food science has confirmed what those cooks knew by instinct, that vegetable cooking water contains nearly all the water-soluble vitamins that get poured down most modern sinks. A bowl of pot liquor soup, eaten with a hunk of cottage loaf at the kitchen table, fed a hard-working hall boy through a 16-hour day. Number 18. Bread sauce. Upstairs, this went with the Christmas pheasant in a porcelain boat. Downstairs, it was a meal. The cook would stud an onion with cloves, simmer it in milk for an hour, then thicken the milk with stale breadcrumbs and a knob of butter. The result was a thick, savory, custard-like sauce that tasted of warm spice and toasted bread. Servants ate it spooned over toast with whatever cold meat was in the larder, or just on its own with a sprinkle of mace. A loaf went stale in 2 days in 1890. Nothing was thrown away. That bread became sauce, became supper, became something children would remember 60 years later. The recipe appears in every Edwardian household manual under uses for stale bread, but ask a chef under 40 today and they have never heard of it. Number 17. Bubble and squeak. Monday night in every servant's hall in England. Sunday's leftover cabbage and potato were chopped together, mashed roughly, and pressed into a cast-iron skillet with a generous spoonful of beef dripping. The cook left it alone for 20 minutes until the bottom turned mahogany brown and crispy, then she flipped the whole thing like a giant cake. The name came from the sound it made in the pan. Bubbling, squeaking, hissing in the fat. Served with a fried egg and a slice of cold mutton, it was the best meal of the servants' week. Modern home cooks have replaced this with hash browns from a freezer bag. But hash browns do not have the deep cabbage and onion savor that comes from properly fried Monday leftovers. They do not have a name that sounds like the food itself talking back. First pattern break. Here is what nobody wants to say out loud. The food in the servants' hall was often better than the food upstairs. The family ate elaborate French-influenced dishes designed to impress dinner guests. Clear consommes, butter sculptures, beef Wellington, things smothered in cream sauce until the original ingredient was unrecognizable. The servants ate the original ingredients. They ate the cabbage that flavored the consomme, the bones that made the stock, the offcuts that were too plain for the dining room. They ate the way their grandparents had eaten in the villages they came from. Strong tea, thick bread, hot fat, salt meat, fresh vegetables, boiled simple. When you read the diary of a kitchen maid from 1903, you find a healthier diet than what most Americans eat today. The irony is brutal. We spent a century replacing servants' food with the food upstairs, and our bodies have been paying the bill ever since. Number 16. Servants' bread pudding. Not the upstairs version with brandy custard and raisins, the downstairs version. Stale bread torn rough, soaked in cheap milk with a beaten egg and a spoonful of dark treacle, baked in a tin until the top blistered crisp and the inside turned to soft, sweet pudding. Sometimes there was a handful of currants, often not. It cost about a penny per portion in 1895. The cook would slice it cold for breakfast the next morning, or warm it back up with a spoonful of jam for the housemaid's tea break. This is the dish that turned waste into comfort. It is the reason no Edwardian servant ever knew what a stale loaf was. There was no such thing. There was only bread, and bread soon to be pudding. Number 15. Brown Windsor soup. This soup has a terrible reputation now because mid-century British hotels served a watery, insulting version that gave it a bad name. The original, made in the kitchens of Windsor Castle for the staff dining hall, was something else entirely. Long simmered beef and mutton bones with onion, carrot, and celery, thickened with browned flour, and finished with a splash of Madeira wine that had gone slightly off and was no longer fit for the family. It tasted like the most concentrated meat broth on earth. Servants ate it with thick brown bread on rainy nights when the house was cold. It was Queen Victoria's reign in a bowl. Then the cheap hotels got hold of it, dumped a stock cube in hot water, and ruined the name forever. The real recipe still exists in Royal Archive records. Most chefs have never seen it. Number 14. Peas pudding. A linen pudding cloth tied tight around soaked yellow split peas, an onion, a piece of bacon hock, and a pinch of salt, then boiled in the same pot as the meat for 3 hours. When you cut the string, the peas tumbled out as a golden, dense, savory pudding shaped like a melon. It was the perfect food for servants because it was carbohydrate, protein, and fat all wrapped together in something that filled you for hours. The nursery rhyme is older than the United States. Peas pudding hot, peas pudding cold, peas pudding in the pot, 9 days old. That last line is not poetic license. It actually kept in the pantry for 9 days because the dense protein and fat structure resisted spoiling. Servants ate it sliced cold with a smear of mustard on a piece of bread for their afternoon break. Today it survives only in tiny corners of the north of England, eaten mostly by old men remembering their mothers. Number 13. Hasty pudding. The dish so good that visiting upper-class guests began asking why theirs was so dull upstairs. Cornmeal in America, oatmeal in Scotland, wheat flour and milk in England. Whatever grain was cheap and on hand, stirred into hot milk or water until it thickened into a porridge dense enough to slice, then poured into a buttered tin and left to set. The next morning, the cook sliced it 1/2 inch thick and fried the slices in dripping until each side turned crisp and golden. Eaten hot with maple syrup in Vermont servants' kitchens, or with butter and treacle in English ones, this was breakfast for the entire below-stairs staff. It cost about 3 cents a serving in Newport mansions in 1898. The family upstairs ate eggs Benedict and bacon. The servants ate something better and lasted longer through the day. Number 12. Mock turtle soup. This was the cleverest trick in the entire below-stairs kitchen. Real green turtle soup was a luxury dish, costing the equivalent of 3 days' wages for a footman. Mock turtle soup used a calf's head, the cheapest cut at the butcher, simmered for hours with herbs and spices until the gelatinous meat tasted shockingly close to real turtle. Lewis Carroll mocked it in Alice in Wonderland with the mock turtle character. But in actual servants' halls, mock turtle was a treasured Sunday lunch. The cook poached the head whole, peeled the soft meat from the bone, diced it with a bit of bacon and a hard-boiled egg, and served it in the rich, dark broth that the head had made. It tasted of veal and earth and centuries of clever cooking. Calf's heads disappeared from American butcher counters around 1965. The recipe died with them. Second pattern break. The food industry erased these recipes deliberately, but not for the reasons you would think. There was no conspiracy meeting where executives decided to make Americans forget peas pudding. What happened was slower and worse. Refrigeration arrived, frozen food arrived, then sliced bread, instant gravy, canned soup, boxed cake mix. Each new product did not replace one servant recipe, it replaced 10. Cooking from a recipe written in 1895 takes a kind of attention that most modern kitchens no longer accommodate. There is no quick version of bread sauce. There is no instant peas pudding. The techniques themselves required a person to be present at a stove for hours, stirring, tasting, adjusting. That person, the cook, vanished from the American home around 1955, when both adults of the household started working full-time. The recipes did not die because they were bad. They died because we ran out of hands. Number 11. Lardy cake, the pastry that built the British working class. Bread dough rolled thin, slathered with pure white lard and brown sugar and dried fruit, folded and rolled again 3 times like puff pastry, then baked in a tin until the sugar caramelized into a crackling dark amber crust and the inside turned into pillowy layers swimming in melted sweet fat. A slice cost a halfpenny in 1900. A wedge of lardy cake and a mug of strong tea was the 4 o'clock pickup that got every kitchen maid through the second half of her shift. It is one of the most calorie-dense baked goods ever invented for working people, and it tastes like a cinnamon roll designed by someone who understood that you might be cleaning grates until midnight. American bakeries have never made it. Some bakeries in Wiltshire still do. People drive 40 miles for one. Number 10. Faggots. The name became unfortunate, but the dish is extraordinary. Servants in country houses minced together pork liver, heart, kidney, and lights with breadcrumbs, onion, sage, and pepper, then wrapped each ball in a piece of caul fat, the lacy membrane that surrounds a pig's stomach. Baked in a tin with a splash of stock, the caul melted and basted the faggots from the outside while the offal cooked slowly inside, turning into something tender and rich and astonishingly flavorful. Served with mashed potato, peas pudding, and a thick onion gravy, this was the Tuesday night meal in every kitchen south of Manchester. A plate cost the cook about 4 pence to make. The same offal today is thrown into pet food. Modern food writers have rediscovered nose-to-tail cooking. Their grandmothers never lost it. Number 9. Pickled eggs in beer. American servants in Gilded Age Newport invented this version. Hard-boiled eggs, peeled and dropped into a jar of dark stout with pickling spices, sugar, and salt, were then sealed for 3 weeks. The eggs absorbed the malt and turned a deep mahogany on the outside while the yolk stayed bright yellow. Cracked open at the kitchen table after a long shift, they tasted of beer, spice, and meaty richness all at once. A jar of 20 cost about a quarter to make and lasted a month in the pantry. Butlers and footmen ate them with cold meat and pickled onions during their half-hour supper break at 10 in the evening. Today, they appear in maybe 6 bars in all of America. The technique that produced them lives in fewer hands than know how to whittle. Number 8. Kedgeree. Brought to England by colonial officers returning from India, kedgeree became a servant's breakfast staple because it solved a specific problem. The family upstairs ate fish on Friday. Whatever salmon or smoked haddock was left over went into the kedgeree for the staff on Saturday morning. Flaked fish stirred into curry-spiced rice with hard-boiled eggs, butter, and a handful of parsley. It was warm, filling, faintly exotic, and used the leftover fish that would otherwise have gone bad. American servants in mansions on Fifth Avenue and in Newport learned the dish from British butlers who had served Indian Army officers in retirement. By 1910, kedgeree was on the staff breakfast rota in maybe 200 American great houses. By 1970, it was on no breakfast table in the entire country. The leftover fish goes in the trash now. The rice goes in the trash. We have unlearned how not to waste. Third pattern break. Here is the truth about how this knowledge moved through the world. It did not move through cookbooks. The cookbooks in great house kitchens were for the head cook and the housekeeper. Scullery maids, kitchen maids, and hall boys could not read most of them. The recipes moved by hand. A 12-year-old kitchen maid would watch the cook make something twice, then she would do it herself. By 25, she had the techniques in her muscles. When she married and left service, she took the recipes into her own marriage. When her daughters left for factory work in 1920 and city life in 1935 and suburban housewifery in 1955, they took only a fraction of those recipes with them. Each generation lost most of what the one before had known. By the time anyone thought to write it down, the women who had cooked it were already gone. The recipes died in nursing homes between about 1965 and 1985. We were the last generation that could have asked. Number 7. Toad in the hole. Cheap sausages dropped into a tin of hot beef dripping, then covered with a thin Yorkshire pudding batter and shoved into a screaming hot oven. The batter rose around the sausages in golden mountains, crisping on top and turning soft inside, while the sausages cooked through and released their fat into the puddings underneath. Servants ate it with thick onion gravy poured over the whole thing. A pound of sausages cost 6 pence in 1898. A pint of milk for the batter cost 2 pence. 6 people ate well for under a shilling. The dish appeared on American servants' tables when Irish and English cooks brought it across the Atlantic, then disappeared when sausages got separated from dinner in the American mind. There is no genuine version of toad in the hole on any restaurant menu in the entire United States today. It still costs less than $1 a portion to make at home. Number 6. Brawn. Pig's head simmered for 6 hours with vinegar, peppercorns, bay leaves, and a few cloves until every scrap of meat fell from the skull and the cartilage dissolved into the cooking liquid. The cook would pick the meat from the bones by hand, season it heavily with salt and pepper and sage, pack it into a loaf tin, pour the strained cooking liquid over the top, and chill it overnight. The gelatin from the head set everything into a sliceable tureen of cold meat suspended in pale, savory jelly. Sliced thin and eaten on bread with mustard, this was the servants' Sunday supper after the heavy hot dinner had been served upstairs. A whole pig's head cost about 10 pence in 1900 and produced enough brawn for a household staff of 15. American delis stopped selling it around 1968. The skill required to make it from scratch died with that generation. Number 5. Calves' foot jelly. The dish given to anyone in the great house who was sick. Servant or family member, it did not matter. The cook would clean and split a pair of calves' feet, simmer them for 8 hours until the gelatin leached out into the water, strain the broth, clarify it with egg whites, and flavor it with lemon, sherry, and a touch of sugar. Poured into molds and chilled, it set into a clear amber jelly that wobbled like glass. The Victorians believed it cured everything. Modern science has shown they were not entirely wrong. The gelatin and amino acids in the broth genuinely help with gut healing and recovery from illness. Calves' foot jelly was on the menu in every great house infirmary in England and America until the 1920s. By 1950, it was already mostly forgotten. The collagen supplements we now buy for $40 a bottle are doing exactly what this jelly did, less well, with more processing, for 10 times the price. Number 4. Pigeon pie. Pigeons were vermin in cities and grain thieves on farms, so they cost almost nothing. Servants in great houses learned to clean and breast them by the dozen. The breasts went into a deep pie dish with bacon, hard-boiled eggs, onions, and a rich brown gravy made from the carcasses. A heavy pastry lid sealed the top, and the whole thing baked for 2 hours until the crust turned mahogany and the gravy bubbled up through the steam hole. A pie that cost almost nothing to make fed 8 people in the servants' hall and tasted of slow, dark, gamey richness that no chicken can match. Wild pigeons disappeared from American skies after the passenger pigeon was hunted to extinction in 1914. Pigeon pie went with them. There are perhaps 4 restaurants in the United States today that serve any version of it. It is one of the great lost meals of the working class. Fourth pattern break. One more thing worth saying. The servants who cooked these dishes were not romantic figures. They were 13-year-old girls who slept on cots in unheated attics, worked 16-hour days for £2 a year plus room and board, and rarely saw their own families more than once a year. They ate this food because they had no choice, but what they made from nothing was so good that the family upstairs, with their unlimited budget and their imported chef, often ate worse than the staff. That is the secret of below-stairs cooking. Necessity sharpens skill. Nothing teaches you how to use every part of an onion like having only one onion to use. We lost more than recipes when these households closed. We lost a whole way of paying attention. Number 3. Tripe and onions. The dish that head cooks were paid extra to make because almost nobody wanted to make it. Beef stomach lining had to be cleaned, scrubbed, and parboiled 3 times in changes of water before it lost its strong smell. Then it was simmered for 4 hours with milk, onions, butter, and white pepper, until the tripe turned tender and the milk thickened into a creamy, mild, deeply comforting sauce. Eaten with mashed potato and a glass of stout, tripe and onions was the food that built coal miners, mill workers, and the entire industrial north of England. American servants in industrial barren mansions in Pittsburgh and Cleveland made it for the staff once a week. Pittsburgh butchers stopped selling tripe around 1972. It now appears in Mexican menudo and almost nowhere else in American cooking. The fact that it was once the prized servant's Sunday lunch sounds invented. It is not invented. It is just gone. Number 2. Skirly. Scottish in origin, it traveled to every great house staff hall in the British Isles and onward to America. Pinhead oatmeal was toasted dry in a heavy iron pan until it smelled nutty. Then bacon fat or beef dripping was added, and a finely chopped onion was folded in, with salt and pepper and a splash of stock to bring it together. Cooked until the oatmeal was tender, the onion sweet, and the fat had soaked through everything, skirly was a complete meal that cost almost nothing. Servants ate it as a side with cold meat, or piled on toast for breakfast, or stuffed inside a chicken before roasting. It contained protein, fat, carbohydrate, and oniony savor in one cheap pan. Modern Americans have eaten oatmeal as a breakfast cereal for so long they cannot imagine it as a savory main course. But for 200 years, in the kitchens of the houses you have seen in films, skirly was supper. It still costs about $1 to make a pan that feeds 4. There is no commercial product that even approximates it. Number 1. The stock pot. At the top of this list is not a recipe at all. It is a habit. In every below-stairs kitchen, in every great house from London to Newport, there was a stock pot at the back of the stove that never went out. Every bone went in. Every onion skin, every carrot top, every chicken carcass picked clean from the family dinner, every fish head from Friday, every leek root, every parsley stem. The water came up to the top, simmered all day, got skimmed and strained at midnight, refilled in the morning. That pot was the foundation of every soup, sauce, gravy, stew, and pilaf in the entire house. The cook did not measure. She tasted. She knew when the pot needed more bones because the broth tasted thin. She knew when to add salt. She knew when to stop. This single technique, kept alive by the cook and her scullery maid, produced more flavor and more nutrition per penny than anything that has come since. We replaced it with bouillon cubes. We replaced bouillon cubes with boxes of broth that taste of nothing. The bone broth we now pay $14 a cup for is just that stock pot sold back to us with the original knowledge removed. Every house had one. Every kitchen was built around it. And the moment the household staff was let go and the kitchens were converted into pantries and breakfast nooks and laundry rooms, that pot went cold for the last time, and the entire system of cooking it supported collapsed within a single generation. Here is the challenge. Try one this week. Just one. The pot liquor soup, the bubble and squeak, the bread sauce, the stock pot. Then come back and tell me if the servants knew something we forgot. Drop the one you are going to make in the comments. I want to know if anyone's great-grandmother served in a great house and brought something home. Because these were not just recipes. They were the secret currency of every kitchen that ever fed a working person well.